Elden Ring DLC added so many new weapons and spells to the game, and a few interesting ones scale only on intelligence. So on this playthrough, I decided to try and find out if I could beat every major boss in the DLC while this time only leveling intelligence. This means I won't have any vigor and I'll get one-shot by absolutely everything, but my weapons will do a lot of bonus magic damage. To keep the challenge interesting, I have two simple rules. One, I'll be using various different intelligence scaling weapons and spells only from the DLC. And two, once I beat a boss with a weapon, I'm not allowed to use it for the rest of the run. As always, if you enjoyed the video, please do remember to like and subscribe. I start right at the entrance of the DLC with a level 1 character, and as usual, I collect all the freely available Scadutree fragments on the map, but most importantly, I find some int scaling weapons. For my first weapon, I head to the Church of Benediction, and after standing on this specific edge here, I perform a precise Stake of Marika skip, which allows me to reach Karo's hidden grave right at the start. After respawning on the ground, I head north towards these gravestones and pick up our very first int-scaling weapon, the Spirit Glaive. This is a great pierce weapon that does magic damage and can inflict frostbite with its weapon art. Next, I head to Lamenter's jail to pick up the Chilling Perfume bottle, which does pure magic damage and builds up frostbite. And here, I also pick up a really cool stealth item, the Lamenting Visage, which pretty much makes you invisible to enemies. Then, I head back to the starting area and take the sealed spirit spring behind the Fort of Reprimand to reach Scadutree Avatar. This allows us to access the rest of the map without having to beat Rellana early. And since I need a lot of runes to upgrade my weapons and int, I head to the cellar inside the fort to grab a Marika's rune, which gives us a nice 80k runes right off the bat. Next, I pick up a few more Scadutree fragments early in Scadutree Avatar and then head towards the Shadow Keep through the Church District. Here, we get another big rune pickup, which gives us another 50k. Then, I take the elevator here that takes me up to the back section of the Shadow Keep. First thing we do here is backstab this Fire Knight pondering about light, only because it was too tempting, and then run away with his precious carry and thrusting shield, which does split magical and physical damage. Next, I head to the Shadowkeep rafters, and after dropping down to the north section, we get to the lift that takes us to the Grace before Commander Gaius. I get this Grace for later and upgrade my Scadutree level to 7, and then head to the round table to upgrade my Spirit Glaive, and then put the rest of my runes into int. After that, I head to Bellerot to face our first major boss, and since I had the Lamenting Visage, I easily sneak past all the enemies. Even this Curse Blade doesn't seem to notice me, just like the YouTube algorithm. After reaching the final Grace before the boss, I set up my Physic tiers to the Thorny Crack tier, which increases damage with consecutive hits, and most importantly, the Opaline Bubble tier for the 95% damage negation to prevent me getting one shot, which you can guess is probably gonna happen since I'm stuck with 10 vigor. It's finally time for our first boss, the Dancing Lion. The Dancing Lion is pretty weak to pierce damage and has a 0% resistance to it, so I thought about using the glaive here. I start the fight by trying to get a bunch of strafes, but I mess up and sadly instantly lose my bubble. The first attempt basically ends right as it starts because I miserably fail every single strafe and get absolutely destroyed. My second attempt goes much better and I start figuring out some of the strafes and even get a few cool weapon art punishes from under him. The weapon art does decent damage and builds up frostbite, but it's pretty slow while the Lion is one of the faster bosses in the DLC, so I probably wasn't going to be able to build up much frostbite with the Ash. Not to mention he's got a pretty high frost resistance too. Since the charge R2 is pretty bad, I mainly opt to use the light attacks to also proc the Thorny tier. I wasn't really getting to phase 2, and the lightning AoEs were making everything really difficult. Dying to random lightning bolts from out of nowhere wasn't very exciting either. I end up having a few more attempts with random lightning memes before getting a really good fight. The R1s don't really do much poise damage with this weapon, so I had a hard time staggering the line, but luckily I finally get one right at the end. Finally, the run was off to a fantastic start with just a casual 80 deaths to the Lion. I don't want to kill him. I don't want to. I wanted to learn more. But it's okay, we'll do that on the next run. After the Lion, I pick up the Divine Beast Helm, which gives me a +4 to both Strength and Dex. Now that I had to retire the Spirit Glaive, it was time to get a new weapon. I head to the Cerulean Coast and run past Little Yoda here to get the Spirit Sword behind him. Surely, the sword would be better than the glaive. I head back to the Round Table Hold and upgrade the sword and level my int to 59 with the runes I got from the Lion before heading back to Commander Gaius. I decide to add in the Ritual Shield Talisman to prevent getting one-shot at full HP. The worst part of Gaius is its charge. It's fast enough that you can't strafe it consistently, but it's slow enough that you can't really roll easily to avoid the hitbox unless you're light load. I lose the bubble immediately and realize that my weapon does pretty low damage. It also does pretty low poise damage, but thankfully, it being a curved sword means I can be pretty aggressive until I get staggers. The weapon art is fairly similar to the Spirit Glaive, doing okay damage, but unfortunately too slow. I get to phase 2 on the first attempt, and things were going really well, and I keep being really aggressive to secure another stagger, but I do a really bad roll and choke right before the end, which is basically a classic play at this point. Anyway, I make quick work of him on the next attempt. After Gaius, as usual, I pick up the 5 Scadutree fragments behind him. After Gaius, I go back to the Cerulean Coast and drop into the Fissure to pick up another really good int weapon. But first, I fall for the oldest trick in the book, the classic blob on the ceiling.
Gotcha, bitch!
Oh my fucking god, chat. I get the Velvet Sword of Saint Trina and head back to upgrade the weapon. After that, I take the coffin below the Shadow Keep, which takes me to the castle watering hole. I run past the sleeping furnace golems to reach the Darklight Catacombs and begin my painful journey down. I somehow run past the machine gun mages and fire cannons to make it to Jori. For Jori, I use the Velvet Sword of Saint Trina because of his extremely low sleep resistance. I combine this with his bigger weakness, backstabs, to lock him down. The sleep buildup after a backstab makes it very easy to loop him, and the weapon art procs sleep on him in just one hit. This is the one weapon I've used throughout all of my playthroughs that sort of trivializes this boss with sleep and backstabs. Easy. Wow. Can we get a round of applause? After Jori, I get the Scadutree fragments from the church in the woods and sneak past the Madness guys to reach Midra's manse. I get the Grey Sword later and get the Scadutree level 13. I go back to the round table to upgrade our next weapon, the Carrion Dueling Shield. To enhance the shield, I decide to go and get the Deflect here from the Furnace Golem back at the Graveside Plains. I then decide to head to Castle Ensis and sneak behind Moonrithil to get her weapon. But first, I voluntarily decide to get wrecked a few times. Once that's done, I finally get Moonrithil's Night Sword. Finally, I head to Rellana. Since this was my first time using dueling shields, I try to use the famed spam poke strat, but I dig my own grave by losing all my stamina in the process. Okay, well, apparently not. On my second attempt, I play more passive from a distance because of the glint blades. This ends up being quite the struggle because of my inability to build poise since I'm playing too safe. Her uppercuts are also miserable to deal with at low HP. Thankfully, I can go for some nice charge R2s when she goes for the transition to get a huge stagger. Please! Not the glint blades! Let's go! After Rellana, I head back to Round Table and upgrade the Moonrithil Night Sword and get to level 68. Then, I decide to head to the next boss, the Scadutree Avatar. The Avatar only has 7.5k HP for the first phase and takes double damage on the head, so the first phase goes down in just a few hits. Phase 2 is usually the hardest one, but even that doesn't last too long because the weapon art does insane damage and has great range. Phase 3 is the easiest for me as long as I dodge the needle AoE, as you get really long punish windows. I even managed to get a stagger here because of the insane poise damage of the weapon, and the Scadutree Avatar goes down. Boop. Nice! No 7-hour Scadutree situation today. After the Scadutree Avatar, I decide to go and get the best in-scaling Ash of War in the DLC, Carrion Sovereignty. This Ash is dropped by a scarab behind Ymir's Cathedral. I put the Ash of War on the straight sword and head straight to the Jagged Peak. As usual, I help out my best friend Egon here by taking care of the baby dragons on the way. Finally, I reach the peak and first reallocate my flask because Carrion Sovereignty uses a lot of FP and I'm only allowed to use the Ash for the whole fight. I also level my int to 78. Finally, we're ready for Bayle. Of course, I gotta give Egon a fair shot at revenge, so I just sit back and let him try his best.
You,
Nice, man. Okay. That doesn't work out too well, so maybe he needs some help. I initially decided to aim for Bayle's head with a Carrying Sovereignty Ash of War, but I kept missing because of how often he moves it. Next, I decided to target the leg with mixed results too. This fucking guy. Don't say it, Egon. Do not fucking say it. I eventually decided to solo Bayle and finally managed to get some charged casts. The damage was really good, even though he's got like a 40% resistance to magic. I still had to keep in mind my FP consumption, because I could only get like 3 or 4 charged casts with 1 bar. Carrying Sovereignty also does an incredible amount of poise damage, but since it's so slow, I don't really get to attack often enough. The Ritual Shield Talisman was really useful here, because it let me tank a hit while getting off a charged cast. Eventually, I get to phase 2. Something I like to do with phase 2 is to run towards a wall immediately, as Bayle bounces off the wall when he tries to fly into you with his back turned around, which usually lets you get a lot of good punishes. I was almost about to get a stagger here, but I get really unlucky and he jumps away. Why? What the fuck? Why would he? Ah, dude, that would have been so good. For the next attempt, I decided to go all in to amp up my magic damage. I get Rogier's set for another 8% boost, the Magic Tear for a 20% boost, and the Magic Scorpion Charm for a 12% boost of magic damage. With these optimizations, the Ash starts doing some insane amounts of damage. This attempt was going really well, and I also managed to dodge the dreaded laser on medium roll. 2 more flasks. Give me the big nuke. I think I can punish the big nuke. Or like any of the aerials. What the fuck? He didn't cast! You fuck. Easy. Easy fucking game. GG. It's that easy! It's that easy! After beating Bayle hitless, I go and get the cookbook for the hefty magic pots which scales within. I decide to be a little adventurous for the next boss and run around collecting the hefty pots while also getting the Great Jar Helm, which boosts pot damage by 17%. After getting 9 hefty magic pots ready to go, I head to the Putrescent Knight. I use the same build as before, but this time decide to go the extra mile by using the Red Feathered Brand Sword, which boosts my damage by 20% when I'm low HP, since I'm pretty much getting one shot anyway. I also add the Golden Bow buff along with the Jellyfish Shield. Finally, with my complete 10-hour buff routine, nothing could stop me. Except missing my pot. The second attempt, I decide to ditch the Red Feather Talisman, but add the Companion Jar instead, which is a 20% buff to pot damage. I can throw here, I think. Right here? What the? Another throw? What? Oh, I actually hit him. Are you? Fuck. Uh-oh. I live, bitch. I live. Ah! Ugh. After the Putrescent Knight, I finally get my N up to 99. I make my way to the Ruined Forge to pick up the Smith's Crypt Dagger and add a magic affinity to it for the higher in scaling. I also add the Scattershot Ash of War to it. I go back to the Shadowkeep rafters and run past all the bats and drop down a couple of times to finally reach the giant door leading to Messmer. Before fighting Messmer, I upgrade my Scadu level to 14 and equip the Thorny Crack tier again, which is really good with the fast multi-hit weapons like the Smith's Crypt Daggers. Once this was done, I enter the fight ready to dodge the big scripted Messmer orb attack he starts with. Messmer has pretty low magic resistances, and you can actually get a decent bit of range attacks off with the daggers. The daggers also frequently proc headshots with jump attacks and proc the Thorny tier buff immediately on one jump attack. I also use a Scattershot Ash of War to deal damage whenever I needed it. The attempt was going so perfect until I unfortunately make the mistake of healing at the wrong time. The second attempt went just as well, but this time I managed to not panic heal, letting me reach phase 2. Phase 2 is basically just phase 1 except with the snake attacks, which actually makes the fight slightly easier in my opinion, as the fight is a little slower. Let's go! Once Messmer is done, I head back to Midra's Manse to pick up an unconventional weapon, Nanaya's Torch, which also has an in-scaling on it. Nanaya's Torch is probably one of the only in-scaling weapons that can do fire damage, so I decide to upgrade it and head to a boss weak to fire, Romina. The Torch actually performs so well here that I was thoroughly surprised. It has some really good damage, and the charge R2s are also really fast. It also does some really high poise damage, which I thought was incredible, but I kept missing the riposte, which was really confusing to me until I realized I was using a torch, and you can't take riposte, so... oh well. What the fuck? Alright, now she's gonna transition here, so I gotta be careful. I really want to look at the hitboxes on this attack. $92? That 92 damage is gonna be big. No. Sit down, bitch. No! Not today. Not today. After Romina, I burned the Sealing Tree, gaining access to the final area of the DLC, Ainir Ilim. Ainir Ilim is filled with the Spira enemies that spam you down, and with my vigor, it would have been incredibly difficult to make it past in one piece, but I thankfully learned how to climb trees back in Limgrave, which lets me skip a whole bunch of enemies. I also have the Lamenting Visage, which gives me some much needed stealth for this section with the line and the mages. I pick up a few more fragments here and get to Scadu level 16. I head back to the round table to upgrade my next weapon of choice, the Chilling Perfume Bottle I picked up earlier on in the run, which does pure magic damage. My build would be similar to what I had for Bayle and the Putrescent Knight. I use all the magic buffs, but this time use a Perfumer Talisman, which is a 20% boost to perfume weapons. I was ready for Leda and friends. After summoning my good friends Natan and Theolier, I enter the fight. You'll see why I summoned Theolier later on. The perfume bottles are actually incredibly good against NPCs, as the Charge R2 has a huge AoE, and you can start it from a pretty safe distance, which the NPCs run into. The Frostbite proc is also extremely useful with this perfume, and I felt like I was doing really good until Leda joins in and one-shots me because my team left me solo. Maybe I can lead him back? Into the poison? Does he get poisoned? Oh! Nice one, Theolier. Natan is dead? Natan is out? Dane is dead? Has Leda healed? Well, we're about to find out, I guess.
By way of apology.
Don't attack me. Don't attack me, bitch. Do not attack me. Heal. Try healing. Is she gonna heal?
It's needles that will stick you into
Don't kill him. Do not kill. Big. Oh, she doesn't have a heal anymore. Oh, this is it. This is it. Unless I throw. Get her, Theolie! Get her! Let's go! For the next major boss, I picked up a really cool weapon way earlier on in the run from the demi-human queen Mariga and the Cerulean Coast, the Starline Sword. This weapon is probably one of the coolest looking katanas in the DLC, and I go back to the round table to upgrade it. Besides being an in-scaling katana, it also bleeds, which is going to be extremely useful for promised Consort Radahn. Radahn unfortunately has really high magic resistance and also has high bleed resistances, but the Starline Sword was pretty fast, so it let me get in more hits than usual per punish window. It also has a fancy weapon art that I somehow wanted to work into the fight, but Radahn wasn't having any of it, and I kept dying a lot while trying to show off. The second attempt goes a lot better, and I managed to get into Phase 2. Phase 2 is way worse with the flashbangs and the light beams, but somehow my first attempt into Phase 2 goes so incredibly well. 1, 2, 3, 4. It is really good. Hey! Too easy. Too fucking easy! 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No! What the fuck? I can't believe it, man. Dude, I was playing so fucking well. I even get the bleed proc towards the end, which I wasn't expecting because of the high resistances. But of course, when things are going too well, my friends, a choke is soon to follow. I quickly go and grab the deflect here for my next attempt, and this actually unlocks this weapon's true potential. Guard counters with a Starline Sword do more damage, but this time, I also do some incredible poise damage, which lets me consistently get staggers. With this, I finally take down Radahn. After Radahn, I pick up Theolie's weapon from the arena and head to the Round Table Hole to get Radahn's swords from his remembrance. After upgrading them, I head to Metyr. Metyr is usually a boss I dread on these runs, but the Radahn swords were surprisingly good here. They do some really high poise damage, especially to her belly, which takes 50% more damage, so I kept getting quick staggers. The weapon art also does some really good damage. Once Phase 2 hits, I instantly run away because of the massive AoE. Phase 2 is just a waiting game where I run away and bait the helicopter attack, which I punish using the weapon art. Close combat in Phase 2 is probably not the best idea because of her insta laser attack, which can one-shot me at level 1, and you really can't run away from it if you're too close, nor can you iframe it. Die, bitch! Radahn, take you! Oh! There it is! The Radahn Sword's kill on Metyr. Finally, before heading to the final boss, I head back to the round table to upgrade my last weapon of the run, Theolie's Needle. Theolie's Needle is a very unique weapon that does a lot of sleep buildup, so naturally, we're gonna use it on a boss that hasn't slept in forever, Midra. Though I can't proc sleep on Midra, the needle is so incredibly fast as it's a fist weapon, and it does pierce damage, which lets me counter-hit Midra when I strafe him. The needle doesn't do a lot of poise damage, so I don't get too many staggers even on an 80 poise boss like Midra. I get to Phase 2 on my first attempt, but unfortunately walk into the lingering explosion and die. All right, let's finish it. Let's finish it. Yo, this what up, dude? Good morning. Oh, immaculate! Immaculate! Sublime! It's over. It's over! Goodbye, Midra! There it is. There it is. Yo, not bad, dude, honestly. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to check out some of my other runs here.